Okay, let me first talk about how to use the book. Now, again, we're using the CS5 book here in Adobe Photoshop CS5 one-on-one, and there is a link on online resources. At the beginning of the book, it tells you what address to go to. Some of the things that the book talks about is how to kind of use Photoshop like the way that he uses Photoshop, and so you're going to need to download some files. And he basically has, if you go to the link, it'll take you to this web page. Again, you'll be watching videos from him and downloading files. So these, you don't need to download the video if you are connected to the internet. So this download that you see here on his website is to download the video. I'm not going to download the video. I usually watch it online. If you open up any of the lessons, you'll notice there is you download the practice files, and I'll actually link them up to the web page, so you don't have to actually go here. I'll have a link to, oh, here, download the practice files and watch this video. So I'll have that. But before you get started with the book, you're going to want to download his pieces. And what I mean by that is he has shortcut keys that he uses, so you just click there and it downloads, and then he has what he calls the best workflow file too. So do you want to download these, and you might want to download the first two lessons. That's what I did, lesson 1 and lesson 2. So what you get is, and let me hide this here, what you can get, and let me hide this. What you'll get is you'll get these files here, and most of them are in zip format that you download. Now when I download, it goes into my downloads folder. If you have a Windows computer, it would go into your downloads folder. If you have a Mac computer, you have a downloads folder. I just dragged them out of the downloads folder and put them in a folder on the desktop so I knew where they were at. Next, you don't need to uncompress the workflow one because it's in the correct format. But for the keys here, it's in a zip format. Usually, what I do is you either double click on it, yeah, if you just double click on it, it should open up in a program that will uncompress it. So there's that one. Same with Windows. If you right click on it, usually I go to the extract all. Oh. There's a problem with that one. Okay, maybe I didn't get the whole thing downloaded. I'm on a slow connection here. It doesn't really matter. This is lesson 1, lesson 2. You just go back and download those again if I have a problem with them. But as you download the lesson, if you open it up, you'll see all the files from the book. And if you look inside chapter 2 here, you'll see those files that he's using in the book all come along, and then you can practice along with what he's saying. So that's sort of how you would download the lessons. Next off, if you open up Photoshop, he's going to tell you at the very beginning, and it seems kind of complicated, but just try and do it the best you can. As you start looking through, like at the very beginning here, he talks a little bit about downloading and installing his best workflow. And he installs those in the color settings. So here's Photoshop CS6, and I'll talk a little bit about how to use the program in a minute. But again, I'm just talking about how to set up with what he has in the book. Okay. Again, what you want to do is use his best workflow files. So once you opened up Photoshop on your computer, he wants you to change the color settings to his best workflow, and that's on one of the pages in the book. And to do that is going to be under your color settings, which is located underneath Edit, and this is on a Mac, and I believe it's in the same place on a Windows computer too. So the first step is on the Edit, and if you click on Color Settings, I can then go where it says Color Settings here at the top, and then I can go Custom, and I can say Load, and once I hit the Load button, I can go to my desktop where I have mine, and I think it's the Photoshop class setup, and I should have my best workflow CSF, and it should show up here just like it is in the book. Okay, so to install the keyboard settings, you just go to the folder that you uncompressed, and if you double click on the key setting, it should open Photoshop automatically and install them for you. So again, it's the step 9 in the book talks about how you can just double click on there, and then to confirm it is underneath the keyboard shortcuts, which is under Edit Keyboard Shortcuts, and underneath there is where it should say Correct in the keyboard shortcuts. You can go underneath The option that he's talking about in the book is underneath the File menu. So if you click on File, there's an option for Place. So if it says Option Shift Command D, or of course if you're on Windows, this would be Control D. If it looks like that, then it should be fine and you can hit OK. Next, if you go to the Preferences, which are underneath the Photoshop Preferences here, under Windows it might be under Edit Preferences. I can't remember, I don't have a Windows computer in front of me. But under Photoshop Preferences, and I tend to use Windows a little bit more than Mac. I'm just doing this now because this is a laptop I use when I'm traveling. But under Photoshop Preferences, if you go to General, he's going to ask you to actually change some of the settings that you might want. He'll have you turn off some things, like the export option, use Shift key for tool switch, and he wants you to turn some things on and turn some things off. And so he goes through each and every one, and the reason why he wants you to do some of these is for Photoshop to run a little bit better, as well as so when he asks you to do certain command keys in the book that they kind of follow along. That's sort of why we're doing a lot of these. Like under interface, he wants to make sure that the open document tab, standard screen mode, he has no drop shadow. Turn these to none. I'm not really sure why. But at least try and set these along so you can see what sort of how he's following. You can always go back to the default when you're done. The other one under cursor is kind of important. I tend to use Show Crosshair Brush. What that does is it gives you more precise when you're using a tool. So that's kind of a good option. Under Units and Rulers is another important one. He wants to change it to pixels instead of inches. Okay, I tend to use pixels a little bit more, and I use pixels much more than I use inches anyway. So setting it up ahead of time actually helps it a lot. Again, once you do that, you can hit OK. Once you've downloaded some of the things, and I didn't get lesson 1 downloaded properly, so you're going to have to go through that one by yourself. But again, he uses the bridge, browse and bridge a lot, and the first lesson in the book is all about bridge. Bridge is the way that you see files as you're working inside. So I've actually got it on the desktop here for now, and I have my Photoshop class set up and my lesson 2, and you can see them right there. So if you're in bridge, inside the bridge option, I can go to my desktop, I can go to my Photoshop setup, and I go to my lessons 2, and you can see them, and he talks about moving things around inside bridge. He talks about moving the data over here, metadata. So I'll go over the menus in a little bit and how to work with those in a second. But that's sort of how you can get started with the book.